Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel, Skinny on Carbs. My name is Andrea, and on this channel I try to use my background in biology, histopathology, and naturopathic medicine to help you live the life that you dream of and deserve. Okay, all right. So in previous videos, you guys have asked me, it was about sugar versus starch, and it became the battle of the carbs, basically. And I basically gave my vote to simple sugars, and I've explained in multiple videos why I prefer simple sugars over complex carbohydrates. Okay, now what I'm saying is not golden. You can lose weight on any one of those carb choices as long as it is from a whole foods. However, most people want to lose weight quickly, they want to ramp up their metabolism, and they don't have a lot of time to do a lot of exercises and such in the gym. Okay, and when you are using starch as your tool for weight loss for carbohydrates, you're going to need to add those things to your strategy. It doesn't matter what anyone says. I'm sorry, that is the truth. Okay, people who lose weight on starches, they're employing a different strategy. Okay, one of the strategies that they're employing without them even knowing it is calorie restriction. Okay, because they're getting full on the starches, they don't want to eat as much, and so they're calorically restricting without even knowing it. That's one strategy that they're employing. If they're eating carbs until whenever and they're saying, oh, we're eating in abundance, we don't restrict, blah blah blah, okay, that's fine. But I can guarantee you that those people have some sort of physical exercise included in their regimen. Okay, some sort of structured physical exercise in their regimen if they are utilizing carbs, complex carbs, in that way. Where they're not paying attention to how much they're eating, they're just eating because it's carbs and it's healthy even though it's complex. I'm telling you, they're exercising. Okay, and it depends on what type of complex carbohydrates you're talking about. You have plenty of different types of complex carbohydrate food types. Okay, are you talking about the starchy ones? Are you talking about grains? Are you talking about vegetables? Which ones are you talking about? So it's important to understand what you're talking about when we're talking about starches. Okay, so the different types of complex carbohydrates are going to require different types of strategies. Okay, the simplest strategy that I have found for most people where you don't have to overthink it has been the simple nutrient strategy, meaning instead of trying to get complex nutrients, you are getting simple nutrients. So you are getting simple sugars, you are getting fatty acids, and you are getting amino acids, free amino acids or peptides. Okay, that's been the strategy that I have found that works the quickest and it works the easiest for people who don't have time to calculate, who don't have time to think, who don't have time to put this workout routine, who don't have time to measure or count their calories. You really don't have to do that when you are talking about simple nutrition. Okay, because the emphasis is different. We are looking at digestion on this channel, and in this little corner of the internet, that's what we're talking about. Okay, so I gave my vote to simple sugars. That's just on this channel. Everybody else have their own take on what you should be doing. All right, so however, I do understand that not everyone is a raw foodist. Not everyone is a fruitarian. And I'm not a fruitarian. I am a raw foodist, but I'm not a fruitarian. So I understand that not everyone is like this, okay? And it might be a little hard for you to go from eating your cooked meals, especially if you eat meat. It could be really hard to go from eating your cooked meals to now having to just eat fruits, sweet juicy fruits, and that's it, and some vegetables. Oh my goodness, how am I supposed to live? Okay, you're not gonna feel satiated because you're not used to eating like that. I get it. So you want to keep your complex carbohydrates in there. I get that. What are you going to do, right? How are you going to mesh this with the strategy that I'm giving you? So let me help you out. Let me tell you how I would do this if I were to try to mesh the strategies. Okay, now what I would do is I would focus on my simple nutrition, right? So, and I would think about the rhythms of the body. This is going to be the key here, is you have to think about the rhythms of the body. Okay, so for instance, when you wake up, you are still in the elimination phase of your body processes, okay? So when you don't want to eat heavy when you wake up. So a lot of people, they will say, oh, you eat a nice big bowl of oats and it keeps you full, and but I am saying no. At that point of the day, you don't want to eat something that you need to digest. At that point of the day, you want to eat something that's hydrating, something that can give you nice quick sugars. That's the time of day that you should really focus on sweet juicy fruits. Okay, well, first, when you wake up, you should focus on hydration. So water, right? Water, lemon water, whatever your jazz is, you do that, right? But after you hydrated, if you my meal, that's what I do. That's what I've been doing for like years. I've talked about that before. But what I do is I do juices when I wake up. You don't have to do this. I've been doing this for a while. I do juices when I wake up. Water, then juice. That's just me. And then fruit. Okay, but you don't have to do that. Maybe you don't have time to juice. Then just do some fruits or do a light smoothie, okay? But that's what I would do, is I would focus on simple nutrition in the mornings. I would not try to instigate digestion. If you want to bring starches in, okay, here's what I would say. I would bring the starches in at the lunchtime meal, or I would bring it in at the midday range, right? So I wouldn't push starches past 3 o'clock, to be honest with you. In most places, it depends on where you are, because you are trying to work with the sun, okay? Because now, after you get out of the elimination phase of the body, you're now getting into you can do more digestive things, okay? The hard work part of the phases of the body is happening after morning time, when the sun is around 11, 12 o'clock. Now your body can do the harder things. Now your body can break down fats, it can break down proteins, it can break down complex carbohydrates. It's more ramped up. It already eliminated, now it's ramped up. Okay, so if I were going to bring in starches, I would bring them in at that time of the day during that meal. So I usually have 4 meals a day. If I'm going to if I bring in a cooked element, it's usually on my 3rd meal of the day, not my last meal. It's the 3rd meal of the day I usually bring it in, because I start eating earlier on in the day. I don't skip meals. This is the advantage I have, is I don't skip meals. So I can eat 4 times a day, and on my 3rd meal is still early enough where if I want to play around with something a little bit harder, I can bring it in on the 3rd meal. I don't know what your meal count is going to be, but I'm just saying, if I were to bring in the starches, I would bring them in before the 4 o'clock hour. Around 3 o'clock is where I would bring that in. So what type of starches am I going to recommend for you guys? Is it going to be white rice and bread and pasta and that stuff? No, it's not going to be. I'm sorry. All right. So, I mean, I know there are other channels, like I said, that focus on carbs, high carbs, and you can eat any one of those carbs and it's okay. Any one of those starches and it's okay. On this channel, we like to focus on digestibility, right? We wanted things to be easily digested, and we still want it to be water rich. That's what I go for. So what type of starches am I going to go for in this instance? It's not going to be really whole grains. So what I would do is I would bring in things like sweet potatoes, pumpkins, squashes. If you can tolerate legumes, I know legumes can be a little bit harder to digest, but I would probably bring in the legumes over something else like white rice or a pasta or a bread, okay? Why? Because those are sort of grain-based starches, which we can talk about that another time. But those aren't my favorites for digestibility or for ease on the tummy. Sweet potatoes are so good. Sweet potatoes, squash, pumpkin. There are so many different types of squashes. Butternut squash, acorn squash. I can't name them all, but there's a ton of different types of squashes, okay? Squash. And you can get them year round, just so you guys know. And it's that fall. No, it's 2025. You can get them year round. I get those things year round, right? What else? So those are the types of starches that I would bring in or add into my meal if I wanted to feel satiated. If I didn't want to do the colored starches, right? Like the sweet potatoes and whatnot, then I might do some white rice, because white rice really isn't that hard on the digestion. But I wouldn't really advocate, even though I know it's supposed to be healthy, I really wouldn't advocate for the whole grains. I really wouldn't advocate for the like the quinoas and things like that, because most people will not have the ability to digest those very well. Beans you can digest, okay? But you really have to cook them. You have to cook the crap out of them and take it low and slow, okay? So if you have not had beans before, just a spoonful, and see if you fart. I mean, I'm just saying. And even if you do, it's normal. It's completely normal, right? But you can take it low and slow with the beans. I prefer the beans over the grains because the beans are more starchy. Um, but that's just me. And they have a lot, because you cook them the way you do, they have a lot less phytic acid, but they're not the best. Like I said, for me, the starches that I would focus on would be the colored root starches, or colored starches in general, or the fruit starches. Just so you guys know, squashes and pumpkins are they're fruits. They're starchy fruits, right? That's why I favor those. Breadfruit, if you have access to breadfruit, things like that, that's what I would kind of look towards. But green bananas, I mean, these are things that I know of culturally because we eat those, like plantain, green plantain or ripe plantain, green bananas. I grew up cooking green bananas. You have to cook those, really cook those, if you don't want to get, or else it'll tie your belly up. But green bananas, things like that. That's what I would focus on midday. Okay, I wouldn't bring those things in at nights. Why? Well, I talked about it in my last video, and I've spoken about it in a fat loss video. You don't want to stitch your digestive system up at night. You want to free that up. It's my biggest secret to weight loss or fat loss, is stop digesting foods at nights. Okay, and when you bring in complex carbohydrates, you're initiating more of a digestive process versus if you're talking about raw fruits or veggies, right? So that's what I would do. That's the strategy I would use if I wanted to keep starches in my weight loss protocol, is I would bring that in middle of the day, okay? Middle of the day, or in the, as long as it's afternoon time. Don't bring it in during the evening time. Don't make it your last meal. All right, and then my meal after that, my last meal would be a fruit-based meal. This is if you're trying to lose weight, you guys. Or it would be a raw salad meal, okay? And in this meal, I wouldn't bring in a cooked element, because salads are not hard to digest. They're really not. A carrot isn't hard to digest. If you want carrots in your salad or whatever, those things aren't really hard to digest, right? And you can eat yellow squash and things like that raw. You can eat zucchinis raw. You can bring all those things in. They're not starchy. They're not complex. You can bring those in and you can digest those pretty easily. In fact, those are fruits. Those squashes, like I said, are fruits. So that's how I would do it. That's how I would bring the starches in. If I wanted to keep starches in my weight loss plan, that's what I would do. Even potatoes, white potatoes. I prefer sweet potatoes, but white potatoes aren't the devil. You can eat them and be fine, right? So that's what I would do. I would definitely not put fats with that. If you are trying to lose weight, I would refrain from putting fats with that. I just wouldn't. But to each his own. That's just what I'm saying. That's just what I'm saying. So that is how I would keep starches in if I wanted to, if I really couldn't give them up. That's how I would do it, okay? I hope you guys found something useful in this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe and share this with somebody that you think needs to hear it, okay? I'm trying to give you guys more content. Today I am posting the part 4 of the foundational class in my Patreon for weight loss and the eternal fountain of youth. So you can check me out over there on the Patreon. It's Skinny on Carbs, or Patreon, www.patreon.com/Skinny on Carbs. And I will try to remember to put a link to that in the description below. Okay? All right. Bye, you guys.